right, welcome everybody. We did it. It is another Sandler educational webinar here. I'm Mike Montague, your host, Director of Community Engagement at Sandler, and our special guest this month is Lisa Ellis, Head of Product. We call her Head Elf here at Sandler. She is in charge of making all of the cool toys that you get to see when in your local training or in any of our other stuff. Lisa, any opening thoughts?
No, I'm excited to be here, Mike, and talk about the gift of sales success that you can give yourself as we head into the new year.
Yeah, good stuff. And a couple of gifts you can give yourself. Save $100 on the Sandler Summit. Go to sandler.com/summit. And don't forget, you can join the conversation here on YouTube. You comment on YouTube and we can see those. So if you want to do that, you can watch YouTube on YouTube TV and stuff too. So sit back, have an eggnog, and enjoy the conversation here today. But if you want to join in, all you have to do is type on YouTube, and I can see those, like Mauricia from Florida. We've got It's All Good from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I love that. And Vaughn from Ontario as well. Thank you for joining us. We have a great session planned for you here. So if you're not familiar with Sandler, Sandler is the world's largest sales training organization. We've got over 200 locations worldwide. We do the best of both worlds. We have cutting edge industry research, data-backed technology, training, psychology-based modern behavioral science combined with the expertise of over, I think it's 60 years now of sales training, and over 200 locations around the world, training about 50,000 salespeople, and just tens and thousands of hours, billions of dollars of revenue impacted. So we collect some of those best practices and then we share them here with you in opportunities like this. So we're really excited to jump into it and talk about what we have going on here at the end of the year. But first, I want to ask you, what happened at the end of your year for 2023? Type it in the comments below. A, B, or C. A, you had a great year. You're celebrating. You're riding the wave here for the next week and a half. B, you did okay, about the same as last year. That's all right. Maybe, 5% growth up or down, either way. C, we'll see in the next 10 days. We got 10 days left. We're hoping for a big sale to come in. Or D, we got pretty bad. We're looking for any help that we can get at this point. You can join the conversation in YouTube. I see we got some A's. We got some B's here. James, congratulations. There we go. Travis as well. Long ramps. That sounds fun. Scott, I like that. A lot of about the sames. Couple of good years, couple of bad years. That happens. Now, I want you to think about it again. And Lisa, I'm going to start with you while we give everybody a chance to chime in. But why do you think some salespeople struggle in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think there's the typical challenge of just end of year. There's always stuff going on, especially if you're on a financial year close in Q4. There's a lot of pressure on salespeople. You got to make that number, that quota. And you're hoping that those contracts that you put into forecast are going to come in and close in Q4. That's usually a big challenge. But that's also when on the buying side, a lot of customers are saying, we're out of budget. Let's push this to next year. And so there's just a lot of struggle that's going on in the fourth quarter. Same thing with prospecting. There can be that challenge of getting new people to talk to you when they're trying to focus on their year-end close as well. So it's definitely a challenging time of year for that fourth quarter. You're also juggling the most holiday-packed time of the year. So people are taking vacations. They're out of office. So lots of different things that are going on there. I don't know, Mike, what have you seen over the years in terms of where people are struggling in Q4?
Yeah, I want to see some thoughts in the YouTube comments there. So post them below. What do you struggle with at the end of the fourth quarter? I think you nailed it. A lot of it is maybe just people getting distracted. We feel like all the time's compressed. We're trying to get a hold of everybody, get everything done, go on holiday parties, and try and get a hold of people that are starting to duck out and take PTO and everything. But I think the other big one we haven't mentioned yet is this discounting, that there has to be some sort of Black Friday, Cyber Monday special, or some sort of end of the year big thing to like close more business, that we have to do something out of the ordinary. And I've kind of found that really traditional things that win in the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter win in the fourth quarter too. We don't have to get too crazy with it. We see a lot of stuff here. Procrastination gets caught up with people saying, we can push it off till next year. John said the same thing. Lack of a strong pipeline gets a hold of people. Nick Krause is reminding me of Santa Claus already. We're so close there, Nick. We're off by one letter. Finding time off and making plans. Yeah. Sophia, people takes holiday plans, and decision makers are not around. Maybe they're the ones that be able to take off. Bill nailed a big one there. Call reluctance. We just don't want to pick up the phone because we're afraid we're not going to get a hold of somebody. So those are big ones. We put those into kind of 4 buckets here that we call, our kind of holiday challenges here in the fourth quarter. The silent night syndrome. This is where, you find it difficult to prospect during the holidays because people are not responding, or you feel like you won't get a hold of them. Rudolph's dilemma. This is those foggy budgets at the end of the year. We don't know where the numbers are going to come in. We want to hold off. Foggy decision-making processes. They don't know whether they want to push it through this year or next year. The ghost of sales future. That's the call me after the holidays. I'm surprised nobody got that. I was going to award 100 bonus points to anybody that said, call me after the holidays. Oh, not those holidays. I meant the next holidays. And then we get pushed off. Anyway, and then stocking stuffers. We talked about that, getting beat up on negotiations, price, or other discounts. Now, we see a lot of this, but the good news is there's solutions to these. But before we get to them, we're going to cover all 4 of these here in the webinar today, and I'm not hiding them. I just want to take one more look at it and think about our attitude. Why do some salespeople love selling at the end of the year? Lisa, what do you think?
Well, I think there's there can be a real high, right? Because this is when a lot of those big contracts you've been working on all year come in. We had one comment come up that the fourth quarter has been a blockbuster showdown for them this year, right? You can see those huge numbers coming in, those big commission checks. That can be a real big positive towards the end of the year. We also have, buyers might have that use it or lose it money. They've got to use something so they don't lose their budget for next year. So some of those deals that you didn't even have in your pipeline, they're coming in. So that can be a really good thing. Something else is there's a lot of networking opportunities this time of year, holiday mixers, gatherings, and events like this, webinars, where you can jump in and start to network with people. There's that holiday cheer spirit coming around. So I think that's also something to look forward to towards the end of the year. What about you? What have you found that can really kind of lighten the mood this time of year?
Well, I think it really depends on the industry and how that goes. So again, type your comments in the chat. We'll highlight what you have to say here, why people love selling at the end of the year. For me, I love selling at the end of the year because of what you said, a little bit of the budget of like, we get use it or lose it money, tax implications here at the end of the year. Then we get a fresh budget in January. But I think there's also this sort of mental down cycle for people, especially like if you work in the construction industry or some of the other things that slow down in the winter, that you can start getting traction with people that are too busy in the summer or the fall. And all of a sudden things lighten up for them. And so specifically for us in sales training, it's like, okay, well, if sales are down in the fourth quarter, maybe we can spend that investing in ourselves. Maybe we can spend that learning more and growing and doing cool things off. So don't forget, it's not winter in all of the world. Jim, great point there. That's amazing. There is a lot of buying that happens at the end of the year. I think that's amazing. And people may want to give you money and make it easier at the end of the year to close opportunities because they have leftover budget. So I think there are a lot of reasons to be happy about selling in the fourth quarter, and especially here in the last 2 weeks of the year. Love what Dana said, and you mentioned it too, Lisa, that it's just a great chance to reach out to loyal customers, send them thank you notes and Thanksgiving, send in holiday well wishes and updates, write a company Christmas letter, get those out there, all kinds of good things that we can do to keep in touch, get the holiday spirit going. So here's a couple of those, again, just highlighted for you if you want to take some notes or think about your own beliefs here as we go into the end of the year. Holiday cheer, networking, sales opportunities, attitude of gratitude, spirit of new beginnings. People, thinking, hey, the next year we need to do something different. That's kind of one that we haven't mentioned yet there, Lisa, but just at the end of the year, there's this natural reflection time where we go, how did we do? Are we up or down from last year? Do we need to make a change? And that's a great time to get new vendors in there and stuff. So I think that's awesome. And then the gift of new budgets. Beautiful. Use it or lose it money, new budgets, tax considerations, like we mentioned. If you got something that's a good write-off, always a good chance to promote that out there as well.
Yeah, Mike, just to come back to what you were saying in terms of that planning that happens at the end of the year. I'm setting my product roadmap for the next year. This is when I'm talking to vendors, trying to get an idea of everything that I'm going to need to get done next year. So this is a great time for salespeople to think about prospecting, especially if you're looking at, whoever is in charge of a roadmap for development at your client organizations. Absolutely.
Perfect. I think that's great stuff. Now, the big question for all of you here today is your mindset, are your beliefs in the Christmas spirit, the fourth quarter holidays cheer, on the naughty list or the nice list? So the naughty list here is fear of rejection. We think people are going to say no because it's the end of the year, or we have a need for approval. We don't want to interrupt their holiday vacation, or when they're busy at the end of the year. We don't want to be interruptive and waste their time. Maybe we have a low self-image. We don't believe that our product is going to help them. So we start thinking that they wouldn't want to spend money on this, or it's probably not that important. And we start lowering the value of either ourselves in these sales conversations or the product itself. I think that one is really dangerous. And you have a belief in the hard sell. So if you think that you have to push things through, or you have to negotiate, and we have to work really hard at the end of the year to get deals across before December 31st, it may be causing some hard pushback for you. And so sales is one of those weird counterintuitive things that the harder we try to sell, the less likely we are to do so. And so we need to learn how to give people space and qualify better opportunities. Anything on the naughty list that jumps out to you here, Lisa?
Yeah, that belief in the hard sell. I've got young kids and we're into all the holiday crafts, and oobleck comes to mind, right? It's that lovely cornstarch and water mix where the harder you push, the harder it gets, and you just kind of let it go. It becomes liquid, moldable, gets that motion going again. So I think that's really one of those entrenched beliefs. If you're trying to push something so hard, that you get that resistance built in. So I think that's one of those things that definitely comes up that affects your mindset towards the end of the year. And it can be hard. Sales managers have a ton of pressure on them to meet their budgets, meet their forecasts, and that trickles down. So that can be very challenging.
And then on the nice list, we have some positive beliefs here. People that are selling and are excited about it embrace continuous learning, that even if we do fail, we can still have conversations. We can learn about next year. We can start filling that pipeline. And if people aren't buying, that's low risk opportunities to try some new sales techniques, do a new pitch, or maybe do some market research. Like we mentioned, use the lower downtime to invest in yourself and do some learning, things like we're doing here today. You're all already on the nice list. So there you go. I got that to look forward to. Number two, a great time to build trust and respect. With that holiday spirit, we can reach out, we can approach with equal business stature, and we can say, hey, I'm busy here at the end of the year too, but if there's something I can do to help you, let me know. I'll make time for you. And that creates this interesting equal business stature of trust and respect with both parties. And we're not begging for appointments, but we're also not pushing people off either, or thinking that we don't have time for them. Building a great relationship this time of the year is perfect. Number three, confidence in yourself and the offering. That's the opposite of the low self-image. But if you believe you have the cure for cancer or a cure for COVID or something, you want to get that out to as many people as possible, even if it is the holiday season. So if you believe that you bring value and you believe that your offering has value, you want to get that started as soon as possible for your clients. And number four is a belief in the mutual discovery process. So if we think about sales as a discovery process that we're trying to uncover the truth, either they need our stuff or they don't, and whether they can afford it or they don't, or whether we're the right fit and vendor for them or we're not. If we're both in this together, we can ask questions. We can uncover people here at the end of the year that do need our stuff, that do have money left over and are interested in meeting this year. Or we uncover that they aren't, but it has nothing to do with us. They're just disqualified at the moment because they don't have the time, money, or energy to put into this process. Lisa, on the nice list, what jumps out to you?
So for me, I think it's the embracing that continuous learning about your customers, their needs, and yourself in terms of, what can you be thinking about for next year, and how can you continue to develop yourself as a learner, as a sales professional as well. That's kind of where my heart goes to. But I think that continuing to engage with your customers, and like what you said, it's an opportunity to come in with that equal business stature. Say, I understand this time of year is busy. How can we be of service and mutual benefit to each other? I know that on my side, I have salespeople approaching me asking, how can I help you think through your strategy for next year? And that's incredibly valuable as somebody who controls, budget allocation and contracts. So I think that is absolutely, some of those best practices that come across from kind of the inverse side of things. So, yeah.
Awesome. Now, all of this comes down to a conversation about beliefs. At Sandler, we've been on this train for a long, long time, but I think, this is a message you see here throughout the fourth quarter is you got to believe. If you believe you can sell in the fourth quarter, then you can. If you don't believe you can sell in the fourth quarter, you're going to find that a lot harder to do. So that's an old Henry Ford quote. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're both right. And I think when you see that naughty list and that nice list, I want you to just challenge yourself. Ask yourself right now, do you believe? Do you believe it's possible? Do you believe this is going to be your best month of the year, that you can line up a ton of deals even in these next 10 days, or line up a bunch of stuff for January so that you have your best year ever, right? That's what we're looking for. And so I want to ask you, we just got one of the comments up there that belief, not working and networking is only one letter off. Chime in the comments here in YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Write us a comment. Do you believe? Are you in? What's a good, positive, healthy belief for the fourth quarter that you want to have that you think will make a difference in your sales? We'd love to see that. What do you believe? What do you believe about the fourth quarter? Chime those in there, and we're going to get to that as we unwrap some of our gifts of sales success. So we have 4 big gifts here that we want to give you for your holidays, no matter which one you are celebrating. 4 gifts that can increase your sales success for the rest of this year or 2024 and beyond. Number 1, are you ready? Let's unwrap it. It is a gift certificate. Choose your own gift. Normally, gift certificates and gift cards are not the best to give to other people, but it is great to give yourself. And we think that prospecting is a really great gift that you can give your future self. So whether it's over the next 10 days or whether it is in the future here as you go forward, prospecting earns compound interest. The more we do early top of the funnel behaviors, the easier it is to fill our pipeline. And the more full our pipeline is, the easier it is to disqualify people and to do good sales behaviors and to not sound desperate like we have commission breath and we're knocking people backwards with that. So Lisa, I want to ask you about this one, the gift certificate and the gift of prospecting this time of year. How do you find that helpful?
I find that so helpful because you get the dreaded, hey, this is let's schedule this next month when we get back from the holidays. But this is a great time for that. Get those appointment schedules, get people thinking about that thought leadership. They've got some downtime. They're getting things organized for next year. Set those appointments and get your January and February filled up. This is really a gift for your future self that gives you some downtime. And then as soon as you get back from that holiday break, you're ready to rock and roll. So this is really, I think, a great gift to your future self to fill up that calendar and those appointments for early next year.
Absolutely. I love it. Now, as we move to our next gift, I want to ask you, what gifts are you giving your future self in your sales profession here? I think there's a lot of them. I think when you do hard things, then they become easier over time. When you prepare, you do market research, you pre-call plan, you can have a better call when you go on it next time. So sometimes we have to slow down to speed up. Sometimes we have to do the hard things now, especially if you're early in your sales career. You got to make some cold calls. You got to figure it out. You got to go get some no's so that you can learn how to win. I think that's a big gift that you can give yourself. Gift number 2 from Sandler here, though. Are you ready to unwrap our yellow gift? It is your wish list. This is a huge one because you can give yourself the gift of qualification, of knowing what you're looking for in an ideal client relationship. This one for me is huge. I always think about like a scavenger hunt. If we're going on a scavenger hunt or we're going grocery shopping, Christmas shopping for our loved ones, it really helps to know what we're looking for. If we just go wander around, Walmart or something looking for a great gift, it's going to be a little messy. If we go in knowing or go on Amazon knowing exactly what we're looking for, now all of a sudden we can decide whether that's the thing we're looking at or it's not, if it's going to fit our needs or if it's not. And in your sales, that this is a big deal because we need to know who our ideal targets are. We can reach billions of people now with the internet and worldwide selling. How do we know which ones are the right ones for us? Lisa, I'll give you a crack at this one. Then I have a few more thoughts about what we should put on our qualification list. But what are your initial thoughts on this gift?
Oh, I think this is really just such a great gift for yourself to know what is qualified, what is not, right? So you can think, let's take this to the gift analogy. You might have, a $50 limit. That really helps so that you know exactly like what's your threshold for what you're spending. In sales, you might say like, what's my minimum deal size? I'm not going to look at something that's lower than that because that's not going to add value to my pipeline, right? I think that the best thing about this wish list is it helps you not waste effort, right? That quick no is just as valuable as a quick yes, right? If not more so that you're not burning energy and time on things that aren't going to be qualified later. So I think that ideal client relationship, ideal client profile is huge. Tell me a little bit more about what you were thinking in terms of what makes that list. How do you check off the boxes there in terms of that qualification?
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask here, and we'll get some comments from the audience, is what would be on your qualification list? I think a lot of people default to industry, persona stuff, kind of basic quantitative things that we can look up, right? So that is a great place to start, but it's really bad for sales qualification because even in your target market, most research studies show that only about 3% of your addressable market is ready to buy at any given time. So even if we have all of that industry persona stuff and those ideal targets of roles and industries and things like that, only 3% of them are going to be ready. And the question is why? Well, at Sandler, we have 3 things that we want to put on our qualification list: pain, budget, and decision. So pain is, do they have a problem that we can solve? Is it big enough? Do they recognize it? Is there a sense of urgency? Is this a pain in the present that they want to address? Number 2 is the investment. It's not just the budget of money, but can they invest the time, money, and resources and all the effort and energy it takes to solve that problem? So sometimes money is most of the effort there. You can buy a solution, have somebody else do that. But other times, just the pain of changing vendors, especially this time of year or something else, might be a bigger qualification. So there's a lot going into that one. They have to be willing to invest what it takes to solve their problem and to become an ideal client for you. I think that ideal client relationship is a big phrase there. Number 3 is the decision-making process. Are they going to decide in a manner that will be consistent with how we like to sell and what would be in our best interest? So what I think about here is their timelines, their process. Are they going to shop us out and take 3 other bids? Are they going to steal all of our proposals and go take that to their existing vendor and renegotiate there? Or is this a decision-making process that puts us as a consultant, a trusted advisor that is helping them craft RFPs or ideal scopes of work and things, and we're part of a collaborative process where we're trusting? So for me, on your qualification list should definitely be pain, investment, and decision-making process. But there's a whole bunch of other things. You can add things like, and I'm waiting to hear your comments in the chat. All right. Type those in: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Things like, I only work with nice, pleasant people, right?
Yeah.
Santa Claus doesn't deliver toys to bad little girls and boys. Only the good ones, right?
Absolutely. And that's where that equal business stature and that building trust comes back in, Mike, right? You got to have open and honest communication. And if you get that from the get-go, that's contributing to your qualification. But if you notice those buyers are being a little cagey, they're not sharing all the information, or they're not very pleasant to get on the call with, then maybe they're not fitting your ideal client profile, right? You want happy customers. And ultimately that means that they are pleasant to work with too, right? That's important.
Yeah. And Lisa, I had a question for you, because you deal with a lot of our tools that help with this, like pre-call planners and ideal client profiles. And I'm also thinking even like LinkedIn levers or personality conflicts and things. Does anything else come to mind that you think you would want to know about your clients before you reach out to them?
Oh yeah. So there's a lot there. I would say that before you reach out to them, one of the great things that can really help you get that equal business stature and build that relationship is getting a sense of what their personality is like, so that you can adapt your communication style to those buyers so that you're building trust faster. So we do this a lot through DISC. We have several technology partners. Technology is constantly evolving, and there's some really great ways to get a sense of what your prospect's DISC style is before you even ever talk to them. And so I think that's really a great opportunity as you're getting ready and doing your pre-call plan. Another thing would be looking at maybe some common like boilerplate value propositions, and then really tailoring it to their business, their industry, what's going on with them. And so getting that kind of stuff ready so that you're ready to respond to their questions that they have for you. So doing that mental prep work ahead of time with that pre-call plan is incredibly valuable. I know that on our Pursuit Navigator tool, one of the other criteria that we look for is if there is somebody in that organization who has worked with your company before. That can be huge in terms of building an ally in an internal organization. So using LinkedIn and kind of doing, or Zoom Info, or whatever your data gathering platform of choice is, but looking at who has worked with you in the past, and if they're in those organizations, that can also be very, very helpful.
I love that. And you reminded me of our Deal IQ tool and stuff, new one you can ask your Sandler trainer about. But there's so many different things. There's like 38 different things that can impact whether you would win a deal or not. So specifically in that decision-making process qualification, it can be a lot more complicated than we think. It's not just like, are they going to make a decision this year? But there's all kinds of things. Like you mentioned, do we have a friend in there? Do we have a previous client? Do we have somebody that is going to be our champion in that account or not? I've seen so many different things just impact those decision-making processes and whether we're going to win or not. And that's important. We only want to chase those deals that we can win. John Frank mentioned there too. He's like, nothing hurts like a loss after 3 months and proposal writing and doing a whole big deal for it. We want to know that as soon as possible in our wish list. So give yourself the gift of a wish list right now. If you haven't been writing these things down, make your wish list right now. What would you want in an ideal client? What would you want in somebody that you're going to talk to over the next 10 days, even here this year? What would a good sales conversation and a good ideal prospect look like for you? All right. Gift number 3, unwrapping, is clarity and confidence, the gift of knowing what will happen next. Those of you who are familiar with Sandler, this is another big one for us. It works all the time, not just in the fourth quarter, but especially here at the end of the year, is we want clarity in what will happen next. I find that when the buyer and the seller have this nice, well-lit path they can follow. They know exactly what to do. They're not worried. They're not scared about it. But much like Rudolph here, if we have to go out and fly around the world and we can only see 5 feet in front of our face, we're going to get worried into running into a mountain in our sleigh or a chimney or something. We need that nice, well-lit path. So our buyers do too. When we can teach them how to buy from us, when we can outline the steps of our sales process, their buying process, and we can describe this process better than they can describe it themselves, it gives them a lot of confidence in us, a lot of clarity in what will happen next. And we have the confidence of knowing what's going to happen next in the sales process. So it's not that, hey, call me after next year thing. It's, well, when I call you next year, what are we going to talk about? Is there an opportunity there? Or am I just going to call and find out what you got for Christmas? Right? Why are we following up? What is the next process in the next step in the sales process? These are big, huge questions that I think will give you a huge gift in your sales process. So, Lisa, your crack at this one. What do you think?
Yeah, Kurt actually brought it up first. So I think of this kind of like every time you're meeting with a client, you're thinking about that call as a sandwich. At the top, you've got your upfront contract. You're going through why are we here, your purpose, your how much time you've got, the agendas on both sides, both buyer and seller, and what's your outcome for that call. That outcome then ties to that clear future commitment you get at the end of the call. So you know exactly what's happening the next time you're getting together and all the clear actions that are coming from that. So I think of this, that clarity and confidence. You think about the Sandler techniques that we have. Upfront contract is that top layer of bread. You got the meeting in the middle, and that bottom layer of bread to make that nice sandwich is that clear future commitment, so you know what's coming next. So that's one of the things that I really, really think is very helpful. We have some other really great tools that help. Thinking about a timeline tool. We actually just released some new content all around how to guide your buyer's decision-making process. Because as we know, and you mentioned this at the top, Mike, buyers don't necessarily know how to manage decision-making in their organization. One thing that you could find out during discovery that might help you qualify or disqualify, have they made a purchase like this in the past? Have they done it recently? What's changed about their organization since the last time they went through a buying cycle? There's constantly stuff turning around and changing. And so it can be challenging for buyers to navigate their own organization. So what you can bring to the table, like what you were saying in terms of getting that transparency, that confidence of here's what our typical selling motion looks like. Have you thought about these things to make sure that you're ready to answer them as you go through your buying motion?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest things that Sandler teaches, and it makes our top list every time we do one of these things. It's because it's so powerful in not only those steps that you were saying of like the actual technique of doing it and moving things forward, but for me, it's that second part too. It's that confidence that human beings just get weird. We get scared. We can't see in the dark. And we start freaking out when we don't know what's going to happen next. And so if we're not confident in all those beliefs we said earlier, we start making up stories. Oh, well, they didn't return my email, so they must not be interested anymore. Or they didn't, they didn't send me that quote by Friday like they said they would or whatever. It must be over. And most salespeople give up way too early. So I haven't seen these stats recently, but the last time I saw them, it was that most salespeople give up after 1.5 tries. The average is 1.5. And your actual chance of getting a response increases through the first 6 attempts.
Yep.
So you may have to try different channels. You may have to reach out, and maybe that email didn't go through or got stuck in junk and they never even saw it. So you might have to call and follow up and make sure that they even got it. But when you change those mediums, when you repeat those things and you have the clarity and confidence to know that they actually delivered on what they were going to do and they knew what they were supposed to do, it's a real game changer. It can increase your sales by X's, not just percentages. So that's a big one. Any other thoughts you have? Type those in the comments. We'd love to share them with everybody else, your best practices for creating clarity and confidence in your sales. And then I want you to think about yourself going forward from here. What could you do? What specific behaviors could you put in that would give you more clarity and confidence in your sales process? The one thing we didn't mention, Lisa, that I wanted to talk a little bit about is questioning strategies here. That if you don't know what's going on, the easiest thing to do is ask, right?
Yep.
And so I think sometimes we just get afraid to go, hey, what's going on? Is this really a no? Or were you just busy? Like, which one was it? Help me out. And it's okay to ask. And they'll say,
It
no,
is.
we lost interest. We moved on. Or they'll say, no, this is still a priority this year. I was just on PTO. I'm coming back, and we can deal with those answers, right?
Absolutely. That the willingness to ask, don't make those assumptions. Even if you've been in the industry a while, you've seen similar buyers go through similar motions, you want to take that kind of novice mindset, right? And bring that curiosity curve, ask those questions just to clarify, right? Say, hey, you can start with a third party story. I've seen others go through X, Y, and Z process. Does that sound something similar to what you think you're going to experience? There's a lot of different ways to approach that conversation, but absolutely questioning and just being curious about your customer and their buying process, their dynamics can really help get you that clarity and confidence to move something forward.
Awesome. All right. Our next one is Legos, my favorite Christmas present. It's a good system. Our fourth gift to you here is a good system, specifically a selling system in this entrance, but it's the gift of being effective and efficient. And a system allows you to build on past failures and successes because you're not just winging it. You know what you did and you know how it was different from last time. It allows you to make tiny tweaks and improve yourself along the way. So again, chime in on the comments. How do you think a selling system or a good system helps you sell more in the fourth quarter and beyond? Lisa, tell us a little bit about the Sandler selling system. We're going to go there next, but why in particular, I think David Sandler was so adamant about this. He was like, I don't even care if you use mine. You just have to use a system so that we can tell what the heck is going right and what's going wrong.
Yeah. And I think what it comes down to is if you don't have a system, it's very much random trial and error, right? You have a lot of anecdotal ideas, but you don't have a way to go back and critically reflect on what went well, what didn't go well. And so that's a big part of the system is that you have that scalable, repeatable process that you, like you said, can make those minor adjustments and tweaks to over time. Otherwise, you're picking on like maybe the latest thing you heard, you're experimenting, you're trying. There's nothing wrong with experimentation and trying something new. I think that's a great way to learn. Learning through failure is another big one, but having that system to think about and pull from gives you that little bit of structure you need to see that continuous improvement through. It also prepares you for when something goes wrong. So you get a major objection, you run into a ruffled client who had a bad experience. Having that system to go back to gives you that confidence of you always know what to do next. So I think that is absolutely critical when you think about having a system in place. And I've worked with so many different sales methodologies over the years. What I love about the Sandler selling system is that all parts of it can be relevant no matter what stage of the sales process that you're in. Now, there's others that are, some that are more relevant towards the end of a sales cycle, some that are more relevant towards the front. But because what we teach is psychology based, it's about human to human interaction. It can really serve you well no matter where you are in a sales process or pursuit. I think it's really valuable.
I think that's good. And, Dana has another good one here. Differentiating yourself from your competitors gains that slight edge. It actually happens in a selling system too. Just people that work in a system, they know where they're going. They're confident about what happens next. They end up differentiating themselves from other salespeople who just show up and go, hey, how can I help? That's not a bad way to start, but if you're making them, they don't feel like they're bringing you in as an expert here, right? If they knew what they wanted to do next, they would already do it. They'd go buy it online. So they need somebody to guide this process for them as a salesperson. And I think that's a big deal. I had another tough question for you, and I'd love to hear, I haven't heard your version of this, but what's the difference between a selling system, a sales process, and then sort of like a methodology. We use these a lot interchangeably, and I feel like they're a little bit different here, and we can give some people some clarity on this one.
Yeah. So a methodology is a systems thinking, right? So this is your method for doing something again and again. That's what I would call the Sandler selling system. It's a methodology. It's a way that you philosophically approach behaviors and techniques. You've got your attitude in there, right? So that's your methodology. Your sales process is often a bit more linear, although we know the buying process is not always linear. They go backwards and they go up and down that. But when you think about sales process, those are familiar with gate selling, qualification. So you've got some universe of potential suspects out there. Then you move into prospects because they've shown some interest. And then you might actually get into a situation where you've got a client there. But that's your sales process. It's more of that linear going through the sales funnel. The stages that you would see, that's your sales process. There are certain things you do when you get to the proposal stage. Or when you get to agreement and you're getting into contracting. But your method is how you tackle all of those different steps in your sales process.
Yeah, for me, it's a big difference because we need to know what we're trying to accomplish, and then how we're trying to accomplish it is something completely different. So as we move along here, again, I want to reach out and challenge you, if you're watching here, is what's your system? Do you have a sales process and a methodology? Do you know the how, what, where, and why of getting a buyer through the beginning of the funnel, the top of the funnel, the middle, and the end to get them to a decision that it's in your favor? So I'm going to blow this up and we can talk about it a little bit more because we're going to need to put this one full screen. But we have recently, Lisa, changed the Sandler selling system from that linear process to one that's more like a flywheel for the reasons you just mentioned. But I wanted to highlight that again, because as we take a look at it, we usually start with some sort of communication and the buyer, engaging with the buyer. They're becoming aware of what we do. We're starting a conversation. There's some back and forth. But that conversation never really stops. That communication is part of the whole thing.
Pulls through. Yeah.
We've already covered upfront contracts a lot too. Creating that clarity, that next step, defining what your next step in your sales process or their buying process is also critical all the way through. So that's why that light blue line goes all the way around the outside, and it becomes a little bit circular here. We've also talked about pain, investment, and decision-making processes, these qualifying criteria. So when they're deciding who they're going to work with, they're looking at the same thing. Who do they have confidence in that's going to solve their problem within their budget of investment and their decision-making process? Who do they feel most comfortable and most credible throughout that? The ones we haven't talked about are the last two. So yeah. I'll let you chime in here. I'll go ahead and finish. The present solution is our present. If we were going to give a Christmas present to our buyer that was the exact solution to their problem with all those criteria that we just talked about, what would we need to know? So rather than presenting at the beginning and trying to convince somebody to buy from us, what if we did all of this discovery and we presented to them with the perfect Christmas present that was exactly within their budget, solve their problem, and they could say yes to, they'd be super excited about? That's what we're looking to do. And then the big one that I think separates Sandler and every other thing I've ever seen in sales training is the post-sale, that most salespeople get the check and they get the heck out of there before anything bad happens. And they have a negative mindset there. Great salespeople stick around for 5 more minutes. They talk about, any buyer's remorse, last issues, button-ups. They set new upfront contracts for what delivery is going to look like, and they start building their relationship to expand either in that account or through referrals to other accounts. And it can just be a game changer and resetting this whole thing. Maybe it's the post-sale is setting a new conversation, a new engagement into a next step in the process or a different part of our products or services. Lisa, anything I missed or things that you want to highlight here?
Yeah, so I'm living in the post-sale world very much so right now. We're currently doing a ton of research on that handoff between deal close and service delivery, ongoing implementation, and how you expand those existing accounts. So more stuff to come on that in 2024, which is very exciting. But for that post sale, I think that's absolutely critical. That handoff, sticking around a little bit longer, looking for those referrals either inside that account or outside of it. I think that is really unique from what I've seen across the industry. Now, I want to come back to present solution, because you talk about this as this nice little present. And remember, the reason why you do this a little bit later in your sales process is your goal with that presentation is not to educate, it's to get a decision. And that's what I think makes Sandler different than you might see a lot of presentation training out there. And how do you inform your buyers and educate them? And that's a byproduct of a good presentation. They're learning something, but your goal with that is to drive that decision. And that's why we think of that as part of your closing motion, and driving that decision in terms of aligning that inner wheel, which is generally what buyers are going through in terms of their buying process, which is they're engaging with people, they're getting thought leadership, they're going through their consideration, they're making a decision, and then ultimately hoping, this is done well, turning into advocates for you so that you are increasing your ability to expand within that account, overall lifetime value, or maybe they take you with them when they move to their next organization. That's a real big win from how you engage with your customers from the get-go with the Sandler selling system.
And the one thing I wanted to highlight here too that we missed is the big title in yellow there is that it's a buyer focused system. So Dan commented in the chat, people are predictable. And this is a methodology because it is predictable. It's worked over 60 years in every different industry and over like 20 languages and dozens of countries over the last 50 years. And the reason is because this is not about you. Your sales process is about you. You want to do this. You want to uncover this. You want to do that. This methodology is actually buyer focused. We want to communicate the way they need to be communicated to. We want to set upfront contracts for what they expect to happen next and to make them feel safe and confident about what is going to happen. We want to uncover their pain, their investment, their decision-making process. We want to present in a solution that's consistent with what they need to see in order to make a decision. And then we want to do what's in their best interest after the sale to set them up for success and delivery, or to make sure that they've locked in on that decision and everything. So when I think about changing the game, and a gift you can give yourself here is stop worrying about yourself so much and use a buyer focused system that really puts them at the center. That's why we put the Sandler selling system here at the middle, is that buyer's process in gray, the engagement, the consideration, and the decision and advocacy. The buyer is at the middle of this system because that's what's really most important. All right. Love that. Another nice shout out there from RS. Sandler is a communication framework that applies far beyond sales. And that's pretty awesome too. I think that it's a great gift, and you can practice here at your holiday parties over the next 2 weeks, is uncover what's going on with people. What are they worried about these days? They're pain. What are they doing to try to fix it? We have some great questions in the pain funnel that are great conversation starters. Particularly if you've ever been accused, I'm not going to say which gender, Lisa, but sometimes people are accused of only fixing problems and not listening and understanding what's happening. Yeah. And so if you use your Sandler questioning tools to listen to people's stories at your holiday parties, you will be much more well received and much much better liked as we go through. So tell me more about that. Can you give me an example? Right? What have you tried to do to fix it? Great questions for any conversation starters.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to people are predictable. They get to talk about themselves. They remember that positively and have a positive impression of you because you were there to listen.
All right, next one. Dylan, set us up. Dylan, you're jumping ahead a slide. What's going on? Are you not on the same delay as everybody else? Improving your batting average, a baseball bat here as another bonus gift for you. BAT stands for behavior, attitude, and technique at Sandler. And these are our success triangles. I have done over 600 interviews for the How to Succeed podcast. You can subscribe now in your favorite podcast app, How to Succeed podcast. But based on these 3 questions, and no matter what you're doing, these 3 are inextricable. You can't have one without the other. If you try to go do something with a bad attitude, you're most likely going to fail, and you're going to quit doing the behavior because you don't believe it's going to be successful. And if you don't like doing it, you're not going to practice your technique and get better at it. So that attitude ruins the other 2. If you have a great attitude and even great technique, but you never take any swings, you're not going to hit one out of the park. So you have to have the behavior. And if you don't do the behaviors, you don't build up the techniques and the confidence and the momentum necessary to find success either. And then in technique, if we're not practicing, if we're not getting better, if we're not ever learning enough to fail, confidence actually comes from overcoming failures, not from succeeding. And so when we develop our technique, it improves our confidence. And with behavior, we have to be doing the behavior enough to get good at it. So these are all tied together. And when you're thinking about all the stuff that we've talked about today, we go back to the beliefs, then we go back to what are you doing in the 4th quarter and how well are you doing it? A lot of sales training starts with how well you're doing it, but I think that is really the least of your problems. You know, if you approach something with a generosity and a kind heart, and you have a great offering and you believe in yourself and you're trying to help the buyer and you're at least reaching out, I think they're going to forgive some mistakes in technique. But if you're not doing those other 2, you don't even get the swings. You don't even get a chance. And so I would start at those others. What about you, Lisa? Thoughts here on BAT?
This is one of my favorite concepts within Sandler. Just personally, it's helped me a lot professionally. I know that a lot of people of my demographic fit struggle with imposter syndrome. So what you're talking about there, we learn from failure. If you continue to get that validation of you're doing great, you never get that negative feedback of you could improve here, you could do better here, or this didn't really work out. You get that imposter syndrome just starts building up, and it messes with your attitude and your mindset. So getting those at bats, learning how to fail and learn from failure is absolutely critical. And I think Andy had a nice joke there in terms of sales like an artichoke. Practice the art or choke. That's a good one there. Got our dad puns coming in for the holiday season.
Don't get me started.
But I really love this. And whenever I'm struggling with something personally or even professionally, I try and figure out, am I struggling with the behavior, the attitude, or the technique? What do I need to reset on so that I can get over this obstacle? And I think that that's a really helpful lens. And I know a lot of us are going to start setting resolutions for the next year. It's a common thing. I know they've fallen a little bit out of fashion lately because it's like, oh, why set yourself up for failure? Well, instead of setting a goal that you're going to try and get to, maybe just think about a mindset. Affirmations are amazing in terms of what they can do to help rewire your brain to feel better, to think better, and think differently about your activities and your techniques in terms of how you're approaching your sales. Yeah.
Really great stuff there. And I think that's a great challenge for everybody joining us here today is think about one thing in each of these 3 buckets. What's one attitude or belief you want to have going into 2024? Write it down right now and keep it front and center for the rest of the year. Behavior. What's one thing you want to stop doing or start doing in 2024? So this is your goals, your plans, your actions. What we know is the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I found a great study that demonstrates that, Lisa. It's 97% of people, when they're faced with a challenge or an obstacle setback, they do one of 2 things: more of what they're currently doing or less of what they're currently doing. So they either try harder and we're just going to make more calls, or they give up and they're like, these calls aren't working. I'm not going to make cold calls anymore. They don't work. But only 3% of people will try something else. Maybe it's not the cold call. Maybe it's your script, or maybe it's not the cold call. Maybe it's that you could send a video message instead. And it's not the prospecting that's hurting you. It's that you're not doing it in the right way. So write it down right now for yourself. What's one thing you want to start doing or stop doing in 2024? And then technique. These are the tips, tools, the hacks, anything you can do differently as far as tactics. What's one thing you want to learn in 2024? And so Sandler has a long list of stuff. Lisa and her team have been working overtime. I think last count, we had over 60 new items coming this year in the collaborative learning thing that we're doing. But like I mentioned, there's hundreds of podcasts. There's literally probably thousands of topics at this point.
Yeah, right now we've been adding, I think probably on average about 100 assets a month to the learning management system here for Sandler clients in terms of our free library of thought leadership, podcasts, talks, and making sure that they're all tagged so that if you're searching for a problem, you get served the right content to be able to solve those challenges from the Sandler hive mind, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Negotiation, AI is a huge one right now. So maybe that's one you want to add to your list for techniques, learn how to use ChatGPT or some sort of marketing automation.
I'll volunteer myself there. Generative AI, I think, is going to be big. I am spending time every week. So this is my mindset. My behavior is I dedicate an hour a week to learning something new about generative AI. And my technique is perfecting that prompt input, right? So getting those prompt writing, that's my big goal for 2024.
Prospecting, it really should always be on the list. But whatever it is for you, reach out to your Sandler trainer, get help, search our resources. There's a ton of free resources at Sandler.com. Click on the Insights tab, or if you're a client or you want to become one, inside the LMS. Lisa said we're adding a ton of great resources and assets to help salespeople solve challenges. So lots of ways you can improve your technique. All right, last thing that I think makes the biggest difference in your sales is this idea of getting some help. Santa Claus doesn't do this by himself. He doesn't make all the toys for all the good girls and boys in the whole world by himself. He doesn't, deliver them all. He doesn't set it all. He doesn't collect all of those wish lists himself. He's got a network of parents and mall Santas out there listening, and they have the elves helping him with the toys. Now I'm taking the metaphor too far, so I'm going to stop. But in sales, the biggest one is sales leadership. Whether it's you can get a trainer or a coach if you don't have a leader, and then maybe you're by yourself, or maybe you are the leader and you need somebody to bounce ideas off of. That's where Sandler training comes in. But I think for me, there's one thing that always comes to mind. My dad used this metaphor of you can't read the label from inside the bottle. That if your nutrition facts on the outside told you exactly what was wrong with you and what was good about your sales and everything, it would be pretty awesome, except for you can't see it because you're inside the packaging, you're inside the label. So what you need to do is get some outside help. If you are one of those people that came in as B on our first slide there, that you were flat last year, it generally means you've run out of ideas. You've hit some sort of plateau. And if you had ideas that would be game changer for your sales, you would have already executed them this year. So we need to talk to leadership. We need to get coaching. We need to talk to a Sandler trainer or coach to get some outside feedback and ideas. We need to get some measurement on what we're doing and identify what's holding us back, the attitude, behavior, or technique. Lisa, what's your thoughts here on the power of a sales coach or leadership?
I mean, having that coach in your back pocket is huge. Giving that clarity of perspective, that little bit of distance can be super valuable. Like what I was talking about before, if you just get the verbal, yes, 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 you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing, that imposter syndrome starts to build up, right? Am I doing it right? I'm struggling to think of what's next. So if you are a sales leader on this call, it's time for end of year reviews. Make sure that you're including that. Here's where I can see an opportunity for growth in that conversation with your reps so that they can continue to improve. I think that's a really big part and responsibility for sales leaders. And I am saying that as a millennial who desires a lot of feedback. So
totally fair. All right. Final thought here is the magic in the fourth quarter really comes from putting all of these things together. It's not any one of those things. One might be the big bottleneck or Achilles heel for you, but the magic really comes from putting together the attitude, behavior, and technique, from giving your gift the all four of those things that we talked about today: creating confidence and clarity, having a system, working with your sales leadership. Putting all of these things together is what makes a difference. And we got a couple of offers for you. Number one, if you haven't already gotten your ticket to the Sandler Summit, they are as cheap as they are going to be before the summit right now. You can save $100 before December 31st. If you get your ticket to the Sandler Summit, go to sandler.com/summit. We'll put the link in the comments as well. And we have a special offer, a free one that you don't have to pay for at all. A free gift for you. Merry Christmas. Go to sandler.com/WSF. Why Salespeople Fail. It's a free ebook, Why Salespeople Fail and What You Can Do About It. You can learn more at sandler.com. Search for Why Salespeople Fail, or do the /Why Salespeople Fail. Lisa, final thoughts?
I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I wish you all the success going into the new year. Hope you have a strong Q4 and an even stronger Q1 with some of these new ideas coming in.
Absolutely. We're out of time. If you got to drop, we completely understand. If not, don't forget to grab this note. Sandler.com/Why Salespeople Fail. If you haven't read that book before, maybe you got some downtime over the next couple of weeks, give that a read. And we would love to see you at the Sandler Summit. 2 days, world-class training, 1,000 of the top salespeople and sales trainers from around the world. I'll be your host there. Lisa will be there as well. Cool breakout sessions, cool outside speakers. The promo is up there. And until next time, thank you guys for joining. Thank you. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Cindy. See you next time. Have a great afternoon.